Welcome to Bits and Bobs,
the show where we bring you
tabletop gaming news and entertainment
from around the globe.
So grab a nice coffee and sit back.
and let us welcome you to our table. Hello again, I'm Fertessa Allyse, and I am back with board game etiquette. So last time I talked about kind of being aware of time and how the players that you're playing with process time differently. Today I want to discuss curating your table talk. So you might be thinking, why should I censor myself? That's not what I'm talking about. For me, whenever I'm playing a game, something that really brings it to life is whenever I can trash talk. I love trash talk. And that doesn't mean that I'm an excellent gamer. That doesn't mean that I'm necessarily the most aggressive gamer, though I kind of maybe am. But it doesn't mean that I'm playing and I'm going to win. I just like trash talk because it's fun and it's just a way to kind of poke fun at myself and others in kind of a light spirit, regardless of what's happening with the game. But I also realized that some people are not comfortable with that. Some of my friends are a lot more comfortable with cooperative games or games where you're not going to be mean to one another. And it's important to recognize when you are gaming with somebody, friend or stranger, who is not comfortable with trash talk. Because trash talk is fun when it's with somebody else who's going to do the same right back to you. But if you're trash talking to somebody who does not enjoy that, then you're just kind of picking on that person and it's going to get awkward. So whenever you are sitting down for a game, what I recommend is that you feel it out first. Instead of trash talking, maybe you want to try the reverse. Kind of trash talk yourself. Like, if I see that I'm making some suboptimal moves, and I'm just like, why did I do that? Now I've set you up to kill me. You know, like if you kind of pay that compliment that way, see if they laugh, see if they react to it, that is kind of a way to invite somebody to engage with you without actually attacking them. Like, oh, I'm going to get you, like, just you wait. That's unnecessary unless you're like close and, you know, you're comfortable with each other so they can tell if you're playing or not. But, you know, if you're with a stranger but you still want to engage with them, then there are other ways to kind of bring that table banter without being aggressive. So next time you sit down for a game, really consider what you're going to say, you know, before you get into the spirit, because you can still keep that good energy and redirect it in a more positive way. So, thank you.
Hello, I'm Sophie from Needy Cat Games, and today I'd like to talk to you about 3 tips for game design. Now, I know a few other people who've been on this have talked about game design before and the fact that anyone can design a game, and that really is true. And I'm hoping that these 3 tips will get you started in trying to do your own thing. The first one is to get it to the table as quickly as possible. I think some previous people have actually spoken about, you know, you can make a game out of anything. All you need is some pen and paper or some cards, and you can just make a game. But I think what some people underestimate is how important it is to just get it on the table, get it made and a physical thing out of your head as quickly as possible. So what that means is when you've got an idea, say, I don't know, I want to do a card game about trading walnuts, rather than trying to work out all of the rules in your mind, just make a few cards and your game will be inherently broken. It won't work straight away, but that's great because the moment it's physically a thing, you can start playtesting it and tweaking it and improving it, and by a very quick amount of time, you'll have a playable game. If you just try and theorize it all and make the game completely in your brain, you end up tying yourself in knots and the whole thing becomes quite intimidating for a lot of people. And also, when you get it to the table, it still might have issues, and that can be quite disheartening if you think it's like perfect when it's a theoretical thing. So just get it on the table, embrace the fact that it's not going to look pretty and it's not going to work perfectly, but just get it out of your brain as quickly as possible. The second tip is to play more games and then to make more games. So if you ever come across like a big challenge that you can't get your head around when you're developing your game, if you ever come across like a tricky problem where you can't balance your resources or you can't work out your turn sequence, just pop it down and play a bunch more games, because I guarantee that as you're playing games, it will inspire you, it will make you have new ideas, you'll start seeing influences from different places, and the more games you play, the more informed your game design will be. And then to addend that, making more games. So if you're stuck or you don't know where you're going and you don't know what to do with your game design, just make a different game, start something new. Not every single game has to be designed all the way up to its final version. Not every single game has to be commercial, but the act of making games is just practice like anything else. You wouldn't expect to pick up a violin and be able to play it perfectly on day one. It's exactly the same thing with game design. So just play as many games as you possibly can and make as many games as you possibly can. And the more that you make games and the more that you play games, the wider your vocabulary and your experience will be, and you will develop that skill set. So the third one is embracing failure. And this really builds into what I've already been saying, which is that when you put a game on the table for the first time, or even the 20th time, it's not going to be perfect. And that is great, because that means that you can still do work on it. And that means that you can still evolve it and develop it. And playtesting is a really key part of that. So when you go towards a game, expect things not to work. Expect things to be what I call sticky. So I always feel that sometimes a game, especially in the middle of a design, will feel like almost like gears are grinding, but they haven't got any grease and there's something not quite right and it doesn't feel as smooth as it could be. Well, that's a case of just playing the game, tweaking a thing, playing it again, tweaking a thing, playing again, and getting as many people involved in those play tests as possible, getting as much input as you possibly can, or just playing it on your own. I do very early test building where I say, get the game on the table as quickly as possible. A lot of that I'll just play through myself. So I might just play as 2 players or 3 players, because I'm only really playing like a 30-second or a 1-minute round. And then I'll go, oh no, that's broken, and I'll tweak it. And that is how I design games. And so I would just say, expect failure, embrace it, and see it as the steps towards getting a really nicely developed game. A lot of people find it very disheartening when they finally get that game that's been in their brain for years onto the table and it doesn't work. But that's fine, because once it's real, you can change it and tweak it and make it better. If it's not a physical thing, if it's not a real thing that you can't like deal with and play with and get used to playing, then it's just an idea and it's not a game. So that's my 3 tips. Get it to the table as quickly as possible, play more games and write more games, and embrace failure.
Hey, what's up everyone? It's Monica again from geeksagogo.com, and I'm back to do another makeup tutorial. For today's makeup tutorial, I am so excited to show you how I turn my face into a bento box. Oh yes, and when in doubt, you did hear right. I am going to turn my face today into a bento box inspired by the game Sushi Go. The other day, the squad from Girls Game Shelf did an amazing job doing the cosplay from the game Sushi Go, and that inspired me to create this makeup look today. I'm really excited to show you what I have in store for today, so let's go on ahead and get to it. So I always get started on my eye area because I have a tendency to touch my face while I'm doing my eyes. So let's go on ahead and do that. Now looking at the box, it's mainly a lot of bright reds is the main color. So I think I'm gonna do that for my eye shadow. first look, I want to make the sashimi. Alright guys, this is the grand reveal. I have managed to get every single character card from the Sushi Go game and put them on my face. So yeah, I turned my face into a bento box. Alright guys, well thank you so much for sticking around and watching me create this look. I hope you guys like it. And of course, don't forget to follow Girls Game Shelf. Once again, I'm Monica from geeksagogo.com. Tune in to the next bits and bobs from Girls Game Shelf.
Hey friends, I am Crystal Pisano of Board Game Blitz and the Dice Tower, and today we're going to talk about some of my favorite underrated or overlooked dice games. We all have that one friend who's like, ugh, I hate dice games. I always roll so poorly and they're always only about the luck. I mean, I get it. There are some dice games where luck plays a huge factor, and if you're rolling poorly, it can be a real bummer. But there are also some dice games that are really fun, have interesting strategies, and ways to mitigate bad dice rolls. My first pick is Quantum, which is a dice game where the dice represent spaceships. And what's interesting is you aren't rolling the dice that frequently, but the dice represent your ships, and the pip value is both its strength and its speed to some degree, and the ships have different abilities based on what their pip value is. So while it looks like there's a bunch of dice on the table, it's actually a really strategic game, and the dice are really pretty, which for me is a plus. Next up for me is a game called Order of the Gilded Compass, which is a re-implementation of an older game called Alia Iacta Est. Order of the Gilded Compass is a dice allocation game, and this is the one that I always recommend to people if you like the game Las Vegas and you want to take another step forward in something a little bit more strategic. Order of the Gilded Compass is really fun. There's a lot of different buildings that you're assigning your dice to, and even if you roll seemingly poorly, there's almost always something interesting you can do with your dice, and I think that that's really important in a dice game, to give you opportunities to do things, to give you options. My next pick got a lot of buzz when it first came out, but I don't hear people talking about it much anymore, and that is Sentient. Sentient is a really fun game. It's a little bit mathy, but in a very interesting way, and it's still approachable, and it's easy to teach. You're placing dice, and you're placing your little tokens, and you're trying to gain area control over specific cards in a tableau, which will then give you little tokens, which will make the cards you collect worth more in the end. It's really interesting. It has a beautiful aesthetic, which I really like, and I don't think enough people are talking about this one anymore, so. Next up is Nokosu Dice, which is a trick-taking game. Yes, you heard me right. It is a trick-taking game that uses dice and cards. And it is fascinating because you're playing a trick-taking game with a hand of cards and a few dice that are sitting in front of you, which means your opponents can see some of what is technically in your hand because you are playing the dice into tricks like you normally would cards. You also are bidding on how many tricks you take, by whatever die you have left over at the end of the round. So you don't make a bid up front. You are strategically playing your dice throughout the course of the round to make sure that the one you have left matches the number of tricks you've taken. It's fascinating, very unique as far as trick-taking games go, and super fun. And last, but certainly not least, you know I cannot make a list about dice games without talking about Strike. It's wonderful. It's supposed to get reprinted this year, or maybe it did. I don't know. I haven't heard. There was supposed to be a new regular edition and a new Harry Potter edition. I love Strike. I've talked about it pretty much everywhere. If y'all haven't heard me wax poetic about how much I love this game, it is epic gladiatorial combat in an arena. And anyone who tries to tell you that it's dice in a bowl is wrong. So that's all for me for now. I would love to hear from you what your favorite dice games are, especially if you think they're a little bit underrated and more people need to be playing them. Drop a comment below and tell me what your favorites are, and maybe I can go check them out in the near future. I hope you all are having a great week. Bye!
Hi, my name is Amanda Panna, and I'll be exploring the question, can there be too many pandas in board games? Well, I might have a few in my collection. So let's check out the games with pandas in it, either as a theme, a character, or in the art on the board or on the cards. Here are 10 games that I own. They will be ranked from least to most loved. Number 10, Pendante, a poker-style bluffing game to gain the panda lord's favor. Number 9, Bears vs. Babies, a game where you build monsters to go after horrible babies. Number 8, Adorable Pandering, a card game where you want the most adorable pandas possible. Number 7, Dream Catchers, a beautiful co-op where you're trying to collect sweet dreams and remove nightmares. Number 6, Unstable Unicorns. This includes the base game, Control, and Here to Slay. It's a take-that battling game where you are building a unicorn army to destroy everyone else's army. Number 5, Pass the Pandas, a light filler where you want to get rid of your dice by passing the pandas to someone else. Number 4, Animals on Board. Gather animals to have the best arc, but beware that some guy named Noah will take all the pairs of animals for his own. Number 3, Zoolaretto. You're building the best zoo. Number 2, Baron Park. You're building the best park full of bears. And number 1 is my favorite game, Takenoko. This includes the original and the collector's edition. You are cultivating the Emperor's Garden with the help of a gardener and a hungry panda, but the other players have a different set of plans. I mean, just check out these pandas. They are a must for any collection. Other games with pandas in it that I'm excited to try but do not own include Dale of Merchants, Way of the Panda, Way of the Bear, Inhabit the Earth, Endangered with the Giant Panda Scenario, Small World of Warcraft, Snappy Dressers, and Jaipur. I can't believe they took out the panda card in the new edition. If your game doesn't have pandas in it, why not add them in? I bought panda meeples from Meeple Source early on, and I love adding them into different games. At San Diego Comic-Con, I found a booth selling dice with pandas on them. And of course, you can just write them into legacy games like Clank Legacy. And to answer the question, you can never have too many pandas in your board games. It's not like you're going to turn into one, right? If there's any games I've missed, please put them in the comments, or you could just send them over so that they can live with their panda family.
Since it's spooky month, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite RPGs, which is Bluebeard's Bride. I was first introduced to this game at a local convention as a player, so I got to play it first before I decided that I needed to everything that had to do with Bluebeard's Bride, all the source books, all the cards and everything to effectively run this game myself. I actually got to do this last year at Big Bad Con, and I got really, really good feedback. I remember being so nervous about GMing this game for the first time, but even the guys were like, I felt the horrors of these topics that women go through and these experiences that women have. So if you are not familiar with the fairy tale of Bluebeard, Bluebeard is this super rich lord in this small town. He has a beard that's a shocking blue color. There is word in the street. He's married many times, but no one really knows what happens to his wives. And you are collectively playing the latest of his wives. So you are just got married and you're exploring the mansion the day after the wedding. And he has to go on this business trip. You have all the keys to the house, except you cannot go to this forbidden room that he says, a small room at the end of the hallway. Eventually, the GM is supposed to get you through all the rooms that you would like to go through, depending on how much time you have together during the session, and then eventually get to the forbidden room. And the forbidden room has all of the ex-wives, and they're all dead. He's just kept the bodies in there. So yes, very spooky. It's a horror role-playing game. And each of the players gets to play a specific part of the bride's psyche. So there's the animus, who is just about strength, sort of physicality. There's the fatale, who is about sensuality and sexuality, that sort of spiciness. The mother, who is about authority and nurturing. The virgin, who is about honesty, believing in people, that naive sense of self. And then finally the witch, who is the spiritual magic side of things. Whoever has the ring, and I actually have a ring that I got. It's not real, but it's a ring that I got so that whoever is the lead of the bride's collective mind can wear it or just keep it in the box. But they'll know that they are the one that gets to decide what room they go to next. All they have to do is just describe the key, and you can describe what the blade looks like, what the feel of the key is, and the GM will use that detail to decide what room you actually end up in. For example, in one of the games that I ran, someone described a key that sounded artistic with an odd blade and felt warm. And so I said, oh, this is the key to the bathhouse. As they went through the bathhouse, the horrors in it, all the experiences, scary experiences that they have in there are related to the body. Because, in a bathhouse, you're stripping down, you're taking a bath. It has a lot to do with sort of standards of beauty. How comfortable do you feel in your own body? The beauty of this type of storytelling and type of role-playing game is that key was decided by the player. And as the GM, you respond to what they're already thinking about. They're describing something to you and are therefore invested in what they're explaining. And that's where the scariness comes in, because they're already in the sort of mindset of, okay, something warm, something artistic, and you've reached sort of into their mind already with the describing of the key. And from there, it's just wherever you want it to go. Eventually, when they get to the forbidden room, they have to decide collectively if they are loyal to Bluebeard or not, based on what has happened already in the other rooms. So sometimes, depending on the session, each of the psyches or each of the players will get to have an experience of explaining the key, choosing the room, but not always. So it just depends on the players, how they work together. There is a co-creation process on the characters, so they are already invested in each other too. So the amount of investment and the amount of real estate that you have in your mind while you're playing this game really, really contributes to the horror. So if you are looking for an RPG for this time of the year, the spooky time, and you want to make sure that there's not a lot of heavy combat or like weird logistic stuff, this is all storytelling and 2d6. That's pretty much it. Play this game with people that you trust. There is a method called X card that they suggest in the source book to make sure that if you ever get to anywhere uncomfortable, that you can touch the card and the GM will know to divert it. Just because it's a horror story doesn't mean that it cannot be also safe. So always, always, always safety and openness about what triggers you or what you're okay with. And from there, you're just spooky time. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you've played this game. It's a great, great, great horror story game.
everyone, this is Luna from Aspie Gamer Girl, and today we are going to talk about the difficulties of being a board gamer in Latin America. So lately, everyone has been talking about HeroQuest and how the shipping costs more than the game itself. And I know it's something like really upsetting, and it's really hard because who can afford that? But imagine this was not the case for just this game, but for most of the games. And on top of that, add on that you might not be able to understand or play the game because of a language barrier. So that is what is happening in Latin America. The board game community in Latin America is not as big as in Europe or the US, but it still is rapidly growing. But it's growing in terms of people that want to play board games. It's not growing in terms of access to those games. So there are three things that I wanted to talk about. First, the value of the games in terms of money. Second, the access to these games. And third, the community itself. So what everyone in the US and Canada right now is freaking out about, HeroQuest costing the shipping more than the game, is something that happens most of the time in Latin America, and you are lucky if you are able to receive the game. Happens on Kickstarter, happens on games that are published. A lot of Kickstarter games, they only ship to Mexico and that's it. Or if they are able to ship to South America or Central America, the price of shipping is double the price of the game. So here we talk about the second thing, that is the community itself and the language barrier. A lot of people in Latin America do not speak English, and a lot of games are not translated in Spanish or are really difficult to find in Spanish. There are so many Spanish speakers that I'm pretty sure it will be worth it to translate some of these games. There is this publisher called Bluebeard. They have offices in Europe, in the US, and in Latin America. They are a Brazilian company that their goal is to translate games into Portuguese and Spanish. So we have them, at least we have that. But still, they cannot manage the amount of games. And I know that there are a huge amount of games that will never be translated, but I'm talking about games that are really popular and a lot of people want to play and they are well known, and you are not able to find them in Spanish or even in a Latin store. So you have to ship from the US or Europe, and then the shipping cost is crazy expensive. I think that there should be a bridge for us to be able to have access to games, to help publishers that can help the Latin communities to get these games. This is one of the reasons why I want to keep my channel as bilingual. It's tough, it's a lot of work, but I keep working towards that because I know it's really hard to find content in Spanish of games, and more when the games are new or they're on Kickstarter. I don't have a solution for this, but I just wanted to let you know that what HeroQuest is for you and what is happening with this game is what happened with most of the games for us. And I know it's painful, it's upsetting, but imagine if that is the only way for you. And I hope that at some point we can fairly expand the market to Latin America.
Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. I'm Wednesday Adams, or Julie Ahern.
And I'm Rachael. In case you didn't know, we're doing a new show called You're Invited.
That's right. And one of the great things about having a support system in the publisher circle is that you can, well, one of the great things is you can get dressed up and be silly with your friends. But another great thing is that we can share what we've learned with each other as a resource.
And we think that's really important to be able to share it with others. So one topic that we are going to cover is must-have tools. So what do you think about that, Julie? I know you got a big old opinion.
I do. So for us, And this is not for everyone, I do know, but for us, a must-have tool is a 3D printer because we make a lot of miniatures. And what we learned early on is when you send it for manufacturing, by the time you get to the approval process of something needing to be tweaked or changed or altered from China, you're not getting to like make the changes. You can't just be like, you know what, can you just fix this a little bit? That ship is sailed. It's done. It's over. But if you're trying to get somebody to do a 3D print here in the United States, which is a much faster turnaround, it's really expensive. And if you're tweaking and you're tweaking and you're tweaking, each print is going to add up. So it's actually really a good investment if you're a miniatures type company to have a 3D printer. But if you're going to do it, you need to ask yourself a couple questions. First, have you done the research? Do you know what you want? Do you know how to use it? 2, are you a tinkerer? Because you're going to tinker. You're just going to. It's a thing that you're going to do. You're going to have to. And the other thing about it, the other pro, is that once you have a 3D printer and you're making these miniatures, it's not just shipping it for the manufacturing that you can use them for. You can use them like when you're sending something to media as a prototype. It's going to have a much more of a wow factor when you actually have those miniatures. So some pros and cons. But I'm going to stop now. I'm going to let you add some things too.
I mean, I am on the show too. I mean, whenever you're done, but so miniatures, totally different for me. All of my stuff is miniature because it's all tiny because, you know, mittens, little. So we have much different needs than you. So we've got, let's see, color laser printer. We probably need a laminator. We've got shipping that we've got to do. So you got your label printer, your scale, not to mention any software that you need to use on a daily basis. We've got some industry standards. So those are the things that we have for our go-tos.
Absolutely. So as you can see, it's not a one size fits all kind of a thing. But if you tune in on Friday mornings, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, you can hear more about this topic and others.
So follow us on Facebook to learn more. And don't forget, you're invited.
Why do humans travel? For adventure? The call of the open road in an open sky? Is it an opportunity to find hidden corners, secret places seen by few? Or to be closer to other people, sharing space, sounds, and ideas? To experience different food and culture? Maybe it's to learn the history of a place, or to experience something beautiful created by others. To combine something already loved with a new space or environment, or behold something much larger and older than ourselves, to find our place in the cosmos. Why do humans travel? Perhaps it's as simple as a desire to see the world with new eyes and grow with every mile.